1 month after my daughter's wedding, the chef called. "I have something you need to see from the camera. Come right now, don't tell anyone." I was still skeptical, but went. When he held the phone screen toward me and pressed play, I couldn't breathe. The video revealed a horrifying truth about my son-in-law. In that moment, I realized all my trust had turned out to be nothing but a joke. Welcome everyone, comment where you're from. Before continuing, please like and subscribe to our channel. Important note, this is a fictional story, dramatized for educational value. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental. However, the lessons about trust boundaries and self-protection carry profound significance. Let's begin. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone rang. It was a Tuesday morning in early June, the kind of morning that makes you grateful you chose Napa Valley as the place to build your life. Sunlight streamed through the windows of my home office, warming the oak desk I'd had for 30 years. Financial reports from Hartwell Distribution were spread out in front of me, inventory projections, supplier contracts. The usual rhythm of a business I'd spent 40 years building from a single delivery truck into something that employed 63 people across Northern California. The phone showed James Sullivan's name. I smiled. James and I went back 20 years to when he'd opened his first restaurant and I'd supplied his kitchen. We'd been through divorces, business expansions, and more bad golf rounds than either of us cared to admit. He'd catered Olivia's wedding last month, $105,000 worth of culinary perfection for my eldest daughter's big day. Morning, James. I said, expecting to hear about a new menu idea or an invitation to check out his latest catering project. Instead, his voice came through tight and strained. "Adam, I need to see you. Right now. Alone." I set down my coffee. In 2 decades, I'd never heard James sound like that. "What's going on?" "It's about Olivia's wedding." A long pause. "I can't explain over the phone. Can you come to the facility in Yountville, just you? Don't bring anyone." Before I could answer, my office door flew open. Brooke, my youngest daughter, 29 going on 19, stormed in wearing designer yoga pants and an expression I'd come to know too well, entitled, impatient. Her boyfriend Jake's voice boomed from somewhere down the hall. "Babe, grab me another beer while you're up there." "Dad, I need $8,000, Brooke announced as if she were asking me to pass the salt. "My car is completely unreliable. I can't keep driving that piece of junk. I saw this gorgeous BMW at the dealership in St. Helena." I held up one finger phone still pressed to my ear. "Brooke, not now." She crossed her arms. "You always say, not now. This is important. Jake and I have been living here temporarily for 5 years helping you out, and I can't even get basic transportation temporarily." That word had lost all meaning around year 3. James, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I said into the phone, then ended the call. Brooke was still talking something about how her friends were embarrassed to be seen in her ancient 3-year-old Lexus, but I was already standing grabbing my keys from the desk drawer. "We'll discuss this later," I told her. "That's what you always say," she called after me as I headed down the stairs. I heard Jake from the living room, feet propped on my coffee table, remote in hand. "Did you get me that beer? Babe." The 20-minute drive to James's catering facility in Yountville should have been pleasant. The vineyards were lush and green, tourist season just beginning to pick up, but James's voice kept replaying in my head. "It's about Olivia's wedding." What could possibly be wrong? The event had been flawless. Olivia had married Kyle Brennan, a sharp young investment banker who seemed to adore her. They'd honeymooned in Bali. Everything had been perfect. Hadn't it? James's facility was a converted warehouse near the edge of town, all stainless steel and professional-grade equipment. I found him in his office, a small space tucked behind the main kitchen. He looked like he hadn't slept. There was a laptop open on his desk, and when he saw me, he stood but didn't offer his usual handshake or smile. "Adam, sit down." "James, what the hell is going on?" He turned the laptop toward me. 3 days ago, I was reviewing security footage from the wedding. We keep cameras running during events, insurance purposes, employee monitoring, that kind of thing. I was checking the timeline, making sure my staff hit their marks. He paused. I found something I wasn't supposed to see. He clicked the trackpad. A video window filled the screen. The timestamp read 4:47 p.m. I recognized the location immediately, the back terrace of the Vineyard estate where we'd held the ceremony. The wedding had started at 7. On the screen, a man in a charcoal suit stood with his back partially to the camera. Even from behind, I knew that posture. Kyle, my son-in-law. He was with a woman, not Olivia. She had red hair, wore an elegant navy dress, and a gold wedding band glinted on her left hand as she reached up to touch his face. They weren't just talking. They were standing close, intimate, and then Kyle kissed her. Not a peck, not a friendly gesture. A deep, unmistakable kiss that lasted 7 seconds. I counted every one of them. The woman pulled back laughing and said something I couldn't hear. Kyle grinned, glanced around as if checking for witnesses, then pulled her close again. The timestamp didn't change. 4:47 p.m., 2 hours before my daughter walked down the aisle. My chest tightened. The office suddenly felt too small, too warm. I stared at the screen, unable to look away, even though every frame felt like a punch. "Who is she?" I heard myself ask. "I don't know," James said quietly. "But I verified the metadata, the date, the time, the GPS coordinates. It's all authentic. This footage is real, Adam." I couldn't speak. My mind was racing through every moment of that wedding day. Kyle had seemed calm, happy, attentive to Olivia. He'd given a heartfelt speech during the reception about how lucky he was to marry into our family. He'd called me Dad for the first time, and 2 hours before all of that, he'd been kissing another woman on the same property. "I didn't know if I should tell you," James said. "I wrestled with it for 3 days, but you're my oldest friend. You deserve to know the truth." He ejected a USB drive from the laptop and held it out to me. "Everything's on here. The raw footage, the metadata timestamps. I haven't shown this to anyone else." I took the drive. It felt heavier than it should have, like I was holding a weapon, or maybe a piece of evidence. "Thank you," I managed to say, though my voice sounded far away. James walked me to the door. "Adam, I'm sorry. I wish I didn't have to. You did the right thing." I drove home in a daze, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. My mind kept circling back to one thought. In 40 years of running a business, I'd learned how to recognize patterns, how to spot when the numbers didn't add up, how to know when someone was lying. This wasn't just a mistake. This was something much, much bigger. The drive home from James's facility felt longer than it should have. The USB drive sat in my jacket pocket like a hot coal, and my mind kept circling back to one question. Why did he marry her? Kyle Brennan wasn't some lovesick kid. He was 36, a successful investment banker with a corner office in San Francisco and a 6-figure salary. If he wanted to cheat, why go through with an elaborate wedding? Why stand in front of 200 guests and make vows he clearly had no intention of keeping? Unless the wedding wasn't about love, unless it was about something else entirely. I'd spent 40 years building a business on one simple principle: follow the money. Numbers don't lie. People do. But financial records, those tell you exactly what someone values, what they're hiding, and what they're planning. The next morning, I sat in my home office with a fresh cup of coffee and the stack of documents I'd been putting off for weeks. Andrea Wells, my estate planner, had sent them over about 10 days ago with a polite note reminding me that we needed to finalize the updates to my trust and will. After Anne passed 8 years ago, I'd let a lot of that paperwork slide. But at 68, with a business worth millions, and 2 daughters who'd inherit everything, it was time to get serious about planning. Andrea had asked both Olivia and Brooke to submit current financial disclosures standard procedure when you're updating beneficiary arrangements, assets, liabilities, bank accounts, employment status. The idea was to understand their financial situations so we could structure things properly, minimize taxes, avoid probate nightmares. I'd glanced at the package when it arrived, but hadn't read it carefully. There'd been supplier contracts to review a new distribution deal in Sacramento, the usual chaos of running Hartwell distribution. And then Olivia's wedding had consumed everyone's attention for weeks. But now, with that security footage burned into my brain, I couldn't stop thinking about patterns, about timelines, about things that didn't add up. I opened the folder labeled Olivia Chambers Financial Disclosure. Her employment information was first marketing executive at a firm in San Francisco, salary $92,000 a year. Respectable. Then her assets, a modest 401k, about $18,000 in savings, her Mercedes still making payments. Standard for a 33-year-old professional. And then I saw it. Joint checking account Olivia Chambers and Kyle Brennan, date, opened May 10th, initial deposit $500. I stared at the page. May 10th. 2 months before the wedding. I pulled out my phone and checked the calendar, counting backward. The wedding had been the second Saturday in July. May 10th was roughly 8 weeks before that, right around the time Kyle had proposed with that 3-carat diamond. Right around the time Olivia had started planning the most expensive wedding Napa Valley had seen all season, $105,000. That's what I'd paid. The vineyard venue, the flowers, James's catering, the photographer, the string quartet, the open bar with top-shelf liquor, Olivia's dream day, and Kyle had opened a joint bank account with her 2 months beforehand. Not after the wedding, like most couples do, not even after they'd been engaged for a while and decided it was the next step, but immediately, as soon as the ring went on her finger. I sat back in my chair, the document still in my hand. That wasn't how love works. That's not what 2 people in love do. They don't open joint bank accounts the moment they get engaged. They ease into it. They talk about it. They wait until after the honeymoon, after they've merged their lives, after they've figured out how to share a bathroom, let alone a checking account. This was something else. This was calculated, planned, coordinated. I spent the rest of the afternoon in that office door locked, reviewing every line of Olivia's financial disclosure. The account had been active since May, regular deposits, regular withdrawals, nothing that screamed fraud or theft. But the timing was what gnawed at me. Kyle had kissed another woman 2 hours before marrying my daughter, and he'd made sure they had a joint bank account 2 months before the ceremony. The doorbell rang just after 7 that evening. When I opened it, Olivia stood on my porch, looking radiant as always. She wore a cream-colored blouse I didn't recognize, probably new, and her Mercedes was parked in the driveway, gleaming under the early evening sun. She smiled, that bright, practiced smile that had charmed everyone at her wedding. "Hi, Dad," she said, stepping inside and giving me a quick hug. "Is this a bad time?" "Of course not, sweetheart. Come in." She settled onto the sofa in the living room, crossed her legs, and got straight to the point. That's how Olivia operated, efficient, direct, always knowing exactly what she wanted. "So Kyle and I found the most amazing house." She began, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "It's in St. Helena, right on the edge of wine country. 4 bedrooms, gorgeous views, a pool. It's absolutely perfect for us." I nodded, waiting. The only thing is we need to move fast. The seller already has 2 other offers, and our realtor says if we don't put down earnest money by Friday, we'll lose it. She leaned forward slightly, her expression shifting to something softer, more vulnerable. Dad, we need help with the down payment. Just $40,000. We'll pay you back as soon as our finances stabilize. Kyle's bonus comes through in October, and I'm up for a promotion at the firm. But right now, we need to secure this house. $40,000. She said it so casually, as if she were asking to borrow my truck for the afternoon. I kept my expression neutral, the way I'd learned to do in 40 years of business negotiations. That's a big decision, honey. Let me think about it. Her smile flickered just for a second, barely noticeable, but I saw it. A flash of something beneath the surface. Frustration, maybe, or calculation. Of course, she said, recovering smoothly. I totally understand. I know it's a lot. But Kyle and I are really serious about building our future, and this house is such an incredible opportunity. We'd be so grateful, Dad. We talked for a few more minutes, small talk about her job, about Kyle's clients, about how much they were loving married life. She hugged me on her way out, thanked me again for considering it, and drove off in her Mercedes taillights disappearing down the road. I stood in the doorway long after she was gone. May 10th, the joint account. Kyle kissing another woman 2 hours before the ceremony. And now, barely a month after a $100,000 wedding, a request for $40,000 more, delivered with the kind of casual confidence that comes from expecting the answer to be yes. The pieces weren't just fitting together. They were forming a picture I didn't want to see. It was Wednesday morning, and I'd just gotten back from a quick run to the hardware supplier in St. Helena routine business, checking on a delayed shipment. I pulled into the driveway, a little after 10, grabbed my briefcase from the passenger seat, and headed inside, already thinking about the contracts waiting in my office. I was halfway across the downstairs hallway when I heard Brooke's voice, loud, crystal clear, coming from upstairs. She was on speakerphone. I froze. Yeah, he's been acting weird lately. Brooke was saying, her tone casual, almost amused. Kind of suspicious. But don't worry, sis. Jake and I can stretch this out another 6 months easy. By then he'll get so fed up, he'll just buy us a condo to get rid of us. I stood there, one hand still on my briefcase, unable to move. Olivia's voice came through the speaker, tinny but unmistakable. She was laughing. Perfect. I've got 2 more months of playing the happy wife. Then I'm filing for divorce. Half those gifts are mine under California law. Kyle already agreed to a 60-40 split, 60 for him, 40 for me. 60-40. Kyle. Divorce. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't make a sound. I just stood there in the hallway listening. And Dad's so proud of your perfect marriage, Brooke said, her voice dripping with mockery. He doesn't see a damn thing. Just keep him distracted, Olivia replied. Keep making him think you need something big and dramatic. That way, when I ask for the house money, it won't seem that bad by comparison. Already done. Asked for a car yesterday. He looked annoyed, but he'll cave. He always does. $76,000. The number hit me like a freight train. That's what Olivia had just said, half the wedding gifts, which meant the total was $76,000. $76,000 in cash and checks that 200 guests had handed over at that wedding, believing they were celebrating love, believing they were supporting a young couple starting their life together. And it had all been a con. Olivia laughed again, a bright, careless sound. God, I can't wait to get out of this. Kyle's already scouting places in the city. We'll be set for at least a year once we split everything. And I'll be in my own place, Brooke added. With Jake. Finally. No more playing the sad, broke little sister. Just don't blow it before I get my money, Olivia warned. 2 more months. Can you keep your act together that long? Please, I've been doing this for 5 years. 5 years. I stepped backward, slow and deliberate, my shoes barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I made it to my office, closed the door silently behind me, and sank into the chair behind my desk. The room felt smaller than it had 10 minutes ago. The sunlight streaming through the windows felt wrong, too bright, like it didn't belong in a moment like this. I sat there staring at the wall, their words echoing in my head. Both daughters, both of them, coordinating. Brooke wasn't just a freeloader. She was a distraction, a decoy. She'd been making outrageous demands, cars, apartments, spa trips, so that when Olivia came asking for $40,000 for a house, it would seem reasonable by comparison. And Olivia's wedding, the wedding I'd paid $105,000 for, hadn't been about love or commitment. It had been about collecting $76,000 in gifts. Gifts she was planning to split with Kyle. 60-40. 60% for him, 40% for her. Kyle, who'd kissed another woman 2 hours before the ceremony. Kyle, who'd opened a joint bank account with my daughter 2 months before the wedding. Not because he loved her, but because he needed access to the money. And Olivia knew. She'd known all along. This wasn't some tragic story of a daughter being manipulated by a bad man. This was a partnership, a scheme. Olivia was in on it from the start, and she'd been playing me the whole time, sitting on my couch, smiling, that bright, perfect smile, asking for $40,000, like it was nothing, like I owed it to her. I opened my laptop, hands still trembling, and typed into the search bar estate planning attorney, Napa Valley. The first result was a name I recognized. Gregory Walsh. I'd heard of him, handled a lot of high-net-worth clients' estate disputes, asset protection. His office was in downtown Napa, just 15 minutes away. I clicked on his website. Professional, no nonsense. Exactly what I needed. I found the contact form, filled it out, and requested a consultation. Then I picked up my phone and called the number listed. A receptionist answered on the second ring. Walsh and Associates, how can I help you? My name is Adam Hartwell, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I need to speak with Gregory Walsh as soon as possible. It's urgent. May I ask what this is regarding? Estate planning, asset protection, and eviction. There was a pause. Let me check his schedule. Can you hold? Yes. I waited, staring at the closed door of my office, wondering if Brooke was still upstairs, still laughing with Olivia about how easy it was to fool the old man. The receptionist came back on. Mr. Walsh has an opening tomorrow morning at 9. Would that work for you? Yes. I'll be there. Perfect. I'll send you a confirmation email with the address. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, that's all. Thank you. I hung up and set the phone down on the desk. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I leaned back in my chair and looked around the office, the shelves lined with 40 years of business awards, the framed photos of Olivia and Brooke as children, smiling and innocent. Back when I'd believed they'd grow up to be good people. Back when I'd believed I was building something for them. Both daughters. Both of them demanding money. Both of them lying. But how deep did this go? How long had they been planning this, and what else didn't? I know I didn't have all the answers yet. But tomorrow I would start getting them. Tomorrow I would stop being a walking wallet. Tomorrow I would become something else entirely. Thursday morning, 9 o'clock sharp, I stood in Gregory Walsh's office on the 23rd floor of a glass tower in downtown Napa. My hand gripped a yellow folder, evidence I'd spent the last 3 days compiling, and through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind his desk, I could see the valley spread out below. vineyards stretching toward the hills like neat green rows of soldiers. Gregory was 56 gray at the temples, with the kind of calm, measured demeanor you'd want in a surgeon or a pilot. He specialized in estate planning and property law, wills trusts, landlord-tenant disputes, the messy intersection of family and money. His office smelled like leather and coffee. "Mr. Hartwell," he said, shaking my hand. "Please sit. Can I get you something coffee?" "Black. Thank you." He poured 2 cups from a carafe on the credenza, handed me one, and settled into the chair across from me, not behind the desk across. Like we were equals working through a problem together. "So," he said, "tell me what's going on. Start wherever makes sense." I set the yellow folder on the table between us and opened it. 1 month ago, I paid for my oldest daughter's wedding, $105,000. 3 days ago, a friend showed me security footage of my son-in-law with another woman 2 hours before the ceremony. Yesterday, I overheard my 2 daughters planning to scam me out of money. I slid the contents across to him. Printouts of the security footage, timestamps visible. Bank statements showing the joint account Olivia had opened in May. Handwritten notes I'd made while listening to Brooke and Olivia laugh about their schemes. Gregory reviewed everything in silence. He didn't react, didn't flinch, just read methodically, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. After a few minutes, he looked up. "Your son-in-law, Kyle Brennan. Do you know much about his background? Investment banker, San Francisco." That's what he told us. Gregory turned to his computer and typed. I watched his expression, neutral, professional, but something shifted in his eyes. He frowned, slightly, scrolled, clicked. "Multiple addresses," he murmured. "Oregon, Colorado, Nevada. Name variations. Kyle K. Brennan, K. Brennan, Kyle Brenner." He looked at me. "Let me dig deeper into this. I have a feeling there's more here." My chest tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your son-in-law might not be who he claims to be. But I need time to confirm. Let's focus on what we can do right now." He leaned back. "You mentioned your younger daughter, Brooke. She's living in your house. With her boyfriend. 5 years? No lease. They told me it was temporary." Gregory nodded. "No written lease agreement means they're tenants at will under California law. You have the right to terminate that tenancy, but because they've been there more than a year, you're required to give them 60 days written notice, not 30-60. California Civil Code. Section 1946.1. He pulled a thick book from the shelf behind him, California Property Code, and flipped to a marked page, turning it so I could see. "Once you serve the notice, they have 60 days to vacate. If they don't leave, you file for unlawful detainer eviction with the court. It's straightforward, but it takes time. And it needs to be done correctly, or they can challenge it." I stared at the statute. Black letters on white paper. Legal proof that I could take my house back. "What about my assets?" I asked. "The business, the house. My daughters stand to inherit everything when I pass. If they're planning to bleed me dry now, what's to stop them later?" Gregory set the book down and met my eyes. "You create an irrevocable trust." "Explain." "An irrevocable trust transfers ownership of your assets to a trustee, a bank, a trust company, an attorney, someone neutral. You can structure it so you retain the right to live in your home and receive income from your business during your lifetime. But technically, the assets no longer belong to you. They belong to the trust." He pulled out a diagram sketched quickly on his legal pad. "When you pass away, the trust dictates exactly how your assets are distributed. You decide the terms, percentages, conditions, timelines. Maybe your daughters receive installments over time instead of a lump sum. Maybe you leave the majority to charity. Whatever you want. And because the assets are in the trust, they're protected from creditors, lawsuits, and in your case, manipulation. Can they contest it? They can try. But an irrevocable trust is nearly impossible to challenge, unless they can prove fraud, undue influence, or that you weren't mentally competent when you created it. If we document everything properly, it's airtight. I took a sip of coffee, letting the heat steady me. What's this going to cost? $5,000 for the trust, $1,500 for the eviction paperwork, filing and service. Total package $6,500. I didn't hesitate. Do it. Gregory studied me for a long moment. Mr. Hartwell, I need to be clear about something. This will likely destroy your relationship with your daughters. Permanently. Once you serve that eviction notice, once they realize you've locked them out of your estate, there's no going back. Are you prepared for that? I looked past him out at the valley below. Sunlight glinted off the rows of vines. I'd built my business here, raised my daughters here, buried my wife here. They destroyed it themselves, I said quietly. I'm just acknowledging reality. Gregory nodded. He didn't argue. He just slid a retainer agreement across the table. Sign here. I signed. He countersigned, dated it, and filed it in a folder with my name on the tab. I'll start the background check on Kyle Brennan today. I'll also draft the eviction notice and begin the trust documents. We'll need to meet again early next week to finalize everything. In the meantime, don't confront your daughters. Don't tell them what you're planning. Act normal. Can you do that? Yes. Good. He stood and shook my hand again. You're doing the right thing, Adam. It doesn't feel like it now, but you are. I left his office with the yellow folder under my arm, rode the elevator down 23 floors, and walked out into the parking garage. With every floor that passed, I felt something shifting inside me, lighter maybe or heavier, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. By the time I reached the garage, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the concrete walls echoing my footsteps. One thing was certain. I'd just declared war on my own family, and I was going to win. Day 12. Friday morning. I was in my home office reviewing supplier contracts when my laptop chimed with an incoming email. The subject line stopped me cold, urgent, Kyle Brennan background, results call, immediately, sender, Gregory Walsh. I didn't finish my coffee. I just picked up my phone and dialed. Gregory answered on the first ring. Adam, thanks for calling back so fast. I need to show you something. Can you get on a video call? Give me 30 seconds. I opened my laptop, clicked the link he'd sent, and a moment later, Gregory's face filled the screen. He looked tired, like he'd been up most of the night, and behind him I could see stacks of files and printouts spread across his desk. Adam, I'm going to share my screen with you, he said. What I'm about to show you, it's worse than we thought. My screen split. Half showed Gregory. The other half showed a document, court records, newspaper clippings, financial statements. Kyle Brennan. Gregory said slowly, has done this before. 3 times. 3 families in 3 different states. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. The first time was 2 years ago, Portland, Oregon. Gregory clicked through a series of documents. A wedding announcement from the Oregonian, bank statements, a police report. Martha Whitmore, 72 years old, widow, owned a successful catering business in Portland, retired comfortable but not wealthy by your standards. She had 1 daughter, 38 at the time, never been married. Kyle showed up at a charity event, swept the daughter off her feet. 6 months later, they were married. He pulled up a photo. Kyle in a tuxedo, smiling that same easy, charming smile I'd seen at Olivia's wedding. Martha paid for the wedding, $85,000, Guests brought in about $180,000 in gifts, cash checks, the usual. 4 months after the wedding, Kyle filed for divorce. He disappeared. The daughter got her share of the gifts under Oregon law, but Martha, she lost something else. Gregory zoomed in on a bank statement. A wire transfer. $50,000. Business investment, Gregory said. Kyle convinced Martha to invest in a startup he was advising. The company didn't exist. $50,000 gone. Martha filed a complaint with the Portland Police Department, but Kyle was already out of state. No charges were ever filed. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. That was his practice run, Gregory continued. 18 months ago, he did it again. Denver, Colorado. More documents filled my screen. Another wedding announcement. Another set of financial records. Robert Harrison, 68. Widower. Owned a chain of hardware stores. Sound familiar? His daughter was 35, worked in marketing. Kyle met her at a business conference. Same playbook. Charm, romance, quick engagement. Robert paid $95,000 for the wedding. Guests brought in $220,000 in gifts. I swallowed hard. The numbers were climbing. This time Kyle got bolder. He tried to get Robert to add him to the deed of the family home, said it was for estate planning purposes. Robert's lawyer caught it. Red flags everywhere. Kyle filed for divorce 3 months and disappeared before Robert could file fraud charges. Robert went to the police. They investigated, but there wasn't enough evidence for criminal prosecution. Civil case went nowhere. Kyle was gone. Gregory looked at me through the screen. Robert told the investigator he wished he'd seen it coming. He said his daughter had been so happy. He didn't want to ruin it. I closed my eyes. I knew that feeling. And then, Gregory said, his voice dropping, 10 months ago. Reno, Nevada. The third set of documents appeared. This time there was a certificate of passing. Frank Morrison, 65, widower. Retired from the hospitality industry, owned a small hotel. One daughter, 32. Kyle met her through social media, moved fast. Wedding cost Frank $70,000. Guests brought in about $150,000 in gifts. Gregory paused. But this time Kyle went further. He convinced Frank to invest $80,000 in a real estate development deal. Fake company. Fake contracts. The money vanished. Kyle filed for divorce 5 months in. And here's the part that makes my blood run cold, Adam. He pulled up a photo. A man and a woman getting into a car taken from a distance, looked like surveillance footage. See, Kyle and Frank's daughter both disappeared. Together. No forwarding address. No contact with Frank. 3 months later, Frank passed away. Natural causes officially. But his neighbors told the investigator it was a broken heart. The man just gave up. I sat back in my chair staring at the screen. 3 families, 3 daughters, 3 weddings, 3 disappearances. Adam, Gregory said quietly, Kyle Brennan has stolen between $500,000 and $600,000 over the past 2 years. Maybe more. We don't know if there are other victims who never came forward. And every single time, the pattern is the same. Wealthy father, widower, 1 daughter, big wedding, cash gifts, and then Kyle escalates. He pulled up a timeline color-coded by state. Oregon was practice. He collected the gifts, ran a small side scam, and got out. Colorado was refinement. He went after real estate but got caught. Nevada was near perfect. Bigger investment scam, longer marriage, cleaner exit. And now, Gregory's eyes locked on mine through the screen. Napa Valley. Adam, $76,000 in wedding gifts. That's just the appetizer. The real target is your house and your business. 4.2 million in real estate, 8 million in business assets. You're not just another mark. You're the big one, the score he's been building toward. My hands were shaking. I set them flat on the desk to steady them. There's one more thing, Gregory said. He pulled up a photo, a woman with red hair, mid-30s, standing in the background of a wedding photo. She was holding a clipboard dressed in black, talking to a catering staff member. I recognized the setting immediately. The Vineyard Terrace, Olivia's wedding. This, Gregory said, is Kristen Shaw, 34 years old. At least 6 known aliases. She's been Kyle's partner for over 4 years. I hired a private investigator in Portland, who tracked her down through interviews with Martha Whitmore's family. They remembered a woman who seemed too close to Kyle at the wedding. Facial recognition software matched her across all 3 prior events. Different hair color, different name, same face. He zoomed in on the photo. At Olivia's wedding, she was listed as a wine vendor. She wasn't. She was watching you, Adam. Both of them were. Olivia isn't the recruiter. She's the tool. You're the target. I stared at Kristen Shaw's face. Red hair. The woman from the security footage. The woman Kyle had kissed 2 hours before marrying my daughter, Adam. Gregory said, his voice steady and calm. Olivia planned to scam you out of $76,000. That much is clear from what you overheard. But Kyle, he's playing a completely different game. He's using Olivia to get to you. And my guess, she has no idea. She thinks she recruited him. She thinks they're partners. She doesn't know he's the one who targeted her to get access to your estate. I sat back, staring at the screen. My daughter had plotted to betray me, but Kyle had plotted to betray her. Olivia was both villain and victim. She'd schemed to steal from her own father, but she was also being manipulated by a professional con artist who'd done this 3 times before and was now aiming for the biggest score of his career. The question was, when she found out, what would she do? Still on the same video call, Gregory's expression shifted. He leaned back in his chair and pulled up another set of documents on my screen. Adam, he said carefully. While I was digging into Kyle, I ran background checks on Brooke and Jake too. I thought it was worth looking into given what you overheard. And there's a lot you don't know. My stomach tightened. Show me. He clicked through to a bankruptcy filing. The header read, Brooke Hartwell, Chapter 7. Bankruptcy filed September 2023, 2 years ago. She filed for bankruptcy, Gregory said. $95,000 in debt. Almost all of it gambling, online poker, casino markers from Reno. She kept it hidden from you. I stared at the screen. $95,000. Her marriage ended because of it. Gregory continued pulling up divorce records. Her ex-husband filed. The court documents cite gambling addiction as a primary cause. He tried to get her into treatment. She refused. The divorce was finalized about 3 years ago, right around the time she moved in with you. 3 years. Not 4. Not 5. She'd been lying about the timeline from the start. Gregory scrolled to another document. After the bankruptcy, 3 casinos filed liens against her before the debts were discharged. She's banned from 2 of them now. And here's the thing. Adam, the bankruptcy, discharged the original $95,000, but they haven't stopped. Credit card records show charges at casinos every 2 to 3 weeks. They've racked up at least another $80,000 in new debts since the bankruptcy. Maybe more. A lot of it's underground loan sharks, illegal card rooms, people you don't want showing up at your door. He pulled up another file, a police report. Jake Morrison, 32. Misdemeanor gambling charges from 2 years ago. Nothing major, but he's banned from 2 casinos in Reno for card counting. And based on the financial patterns, he's still gambling regularly. They both are. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. Adam, Gregory said quietly. Every time Brooke has asked you for money, the car, the spa trips, the emergencies, it wasn't for what she said it was. It was to feed the addiction or pay off debts. Your house isn't a temporary refuge. It's a hiding place. They're staying with you because debt collectors can't find them there as easily. You're not helping them get back on their feet. You're shielding them from the consequences of their choices. The video call ended a few minutes later. Gregory said he'd be in touch soon about the trust paperwork that we'd need to move quickly. I thanked him, closed the laptop, and sat alone in my office. The sun had shifted. The light coming through the window was different now, lower, casting long shadows across the room. I pulled out a legal pad and a pen. I needed to see it written down. I needed to organize the chaos in my head the way I would organize a business problem. I started writing. Olivia, greedy daughter, plotted to scam me out of $76,000 in wedding gifts, 60-40 split with Kyle. But she's also a victim. Kyle targeted her to get to me. She doesn't know he's conning her too. Kyle and Kristen, professional criminals. Interstate scam operation. 3 prior victims across Oregon, Colorado, Nevada. Over $500,000 stolen. Real target isn't the wedding gifts. It's my house. My business. $14 million. Brooke and Jake, gambling addicts. $95,000 in discharged bankruptcy debts. $80,000 plus in new debts. Hiding from loan sharks and debt collectors. Every request for money is a lie. Every emergency is fabricated. They've been using me as a shield for years. I set the pen down and stared at the list. 3 people living in my house. 3 separate schemes. 3 separate lies. And I'd believed all of them. I thought about Anne, my wife. She'd been gone for 8 years now, and I still missed her every single day. She would have seen through this. She would have known. Anne had always been able to read people in a way I couldn't. She'd had instincts I didn't. Anne, I whispered to the empty room. Oh, Anne. How was I so blind? The house was quiet. Somewhere downstairs I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text message. I picked it up. Jake Morrison. Hey, Pops, about that brewery investment, can we talk tonight? Got the business plan all ready. Just need $30,000 to get started. I stared at the message. $30,000. For a brewery that would never exist. For a business plan that was probably plagiarized from something he found on social media. $30,000 that would disappear into casinos' card rooms or the pockets of whoever Jake owed money to this week. They had no idea. No idea I knew about Kyle's pattern. No idea I knew about the 3 families he'd destroyed before mine. No idea I knew about Brooke's bankruptcy, her divorce, her liens, her ongoing spiral into deeper and deeper debt. No idea I'd heard them laughing about me on that phone call, coordinating their schemes, like I was some kind of mark they'd all agreed to exploit. They thought I was still the man I'd been 2 weeks ago. The generous father, the walking wallet, the man who always caved. I deleted the text message. Then I picked up my phone and called Gregory Walsh. He answered immediately. Adam. How fast? I said, my voice steady and cold. Can you finalize that trust? Monday morning. Day 17. Week 3. I drove to Gregory's office with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The fog that had been hanging over me since James's phone call was gone. In its place was something sharper, colder, more focused. Gregory met me at the elevator on the 23rd floor. Adam, good to see you. Andrea's already here. Andrea Wells was waiting in the conference room 44, composed with the kind of calm professionalism that comes from handling sensitive family matters for decades. I'd worked with her briefly when Anne passed, and again a few weeks ago when she'd requested financial disclosures from Olivia and Brooke. Now she was here to help me lock down everything I'd spent a lifetime building. The conference table was covered in documents, trust agreements, deed transfers, business incorporation amendments, signature pages flagged with neon tabs. "Mr. Hartwell," Andrea said, shaking my hand. "Let's get started." For the next 90 minutes, I signed my name over and over, page after page, document after document. The house $4.2 million in assessed value transferred into the Adam Hartwell Irrevocable Trust. The business Hartwell Distribution, valued at $8 million, transferred into the trust. My investment accounts just over $2 million in stocks, bonds and retirement funds transferred into the trust. Every asset I owned, every dollar I'd earned, everything I'd built over 40 years, all of it protected. Andrea walked me through each section, her voice steady and clear. "You'll retain the right to live in your home for the rest of your life. You'll continue to manage the business and receive all income generated by these assets. But legally, they no longer belong to you personally. They belong to the trust, which means they're protected from creditors' lawsuits and anyone attempting to claim them through marriage, divorce, or inheritance challenges." She flipped to the final section, the distribution terms. "Upon your passing, 90% of the trust's assets will be distributed to the charitable organizations you've designated, veterans groups, food banks, homeless shelters. The remaining 10% will be split equally between your two daughters, 5% each. That's not because California law requires it. You could disinherit them entirely if you wanted. But by giving them a nominal amount, you make the trust significantly harder to contest. It shows you didn't forget them. You made a deliberate choice." I looked at the numbers. $14 million. 90% to charity. 10% to Olivia and Brooke, $700,000 each. A fraction of what they thought they'd inherit. A fraction of what they'd been scheming to take. "Sign here," Andrea said, sliding the final page toward me. I signed. She notarized it. Gregory witnessed it. And just like that, it was done. Gregory leaned back in his chair. "The trust is effective immediately. The deed transfers and business ownership changes will take about 3 weeks to fully process with the county recorder and the state. But you're protected now. No one can touch these assets. Not Olivia, not Kyle, not Brooke or Jake. It's locked." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "I also filed a police report this morning. Kyle Brennan interstate fraud potential RICO violations. I've compiled all the evidence from the 3 prior victims and submitted it to the Napa County Sheriff's Office with a request that they refer it to the FBI. It'll take time, federal investigations always do, but we've started the paper trail." I nodded. It wasn't about revenge. It was about stopping him before he did this to another family. Gregory reached into his briefcase again and pulled out 2 thick envelopes. Official, sealed. My name and address printed on the return label. "Eviction notices," he said. 60 days as required by California law for tenants who've been in residence over a year. 1 for Brooke, 1 for Jake Morrison. They're ready to serve. The question is, are you— I took the envelopes. The paper felt heavy. Final. "Yes," I said. I left the office just after noon and drove home. The valley looked different, somehow, brighter, sharper, like I was seeing it clearly for the first time in months. By the time I pulled into my driveway, it was almost 4 in the afternoon. I walked into the house and stopped in the hallway. Brooke and Jake were in the living room. Jake was sprawled in my chair. My leather recliner, the one I'd had for 15 years. The one Anne used to curl up in with a book on Sunday afternoons, with his feet propped on the coffee table. Brooke was on the sofa with her laptop, open eyes glued to the screen. Probably an online poker site. Probably losing money she didn't have. Jake was on the phone, his voice loud and confident. "Yeah, bro, my investor's coming through any day now. 30 grand. We're gonna lock down that space in St. Helena, get the equipment, start brewing by fall. It's gonna be huge, man." I walked past them without a word, the 2 envelopes in my hand, and went into my office. I closed the door quietly behind me. They didn't even look up. I sat at my desk and set the envelopes down in front of me. Through the window, I could see the sun starting its descent toward the hills, casting long shadows across the vineyards. It was almost 6 o'clock. I thought about Anne, about how she would have handled this. She wouldn't have waited 5 years. She wouldn't have let Brooke manipulate her with fake emergencies and sob stories. She wouldn't have paid for a wedding that was nothing but a con. Anne would have seen through all of it, and she would have acted. "Anne," I said quietly to the empty room, "you would have done this years ago. I'm sorry it took me so long." The house was quiet. Somewhere down the hall, I could hear Jake laughing, still on the phone, still bragging about an investment that would never come a business, that would never exist. I stood up, picked up the 2 envelopes, walked to the office door. I opened it. Through the doorway, I could see them. Jake stretched out in my chair. Brooke relaxed on the sofa. Both of them comfortable, both of them oblivious. Neither of them had any idea what was about to happen. The next 2 minutes were going to detonate everything. I walked into the living room, both envelopes in my hands. Jake was still sprawled in my leather recliner, phone pressed to his ear mid-conversation about his imaginary brewery. Brooke was curled up on the sofa, laptop balanced on her knees, eyes fixed on whatever poker game was draining money she didn't have. Neither of them looked up when I entered. Neither of them even acknowledged my presence. I crossed the room and placed the envelopes on the coffee table between them. One in front of Jake, one in front of Brooke. The paper was thick, official, stamped with the county seal. The room went silent. Jake's voice trailed off mid-sentence. Brooke glanced up from her screen. Jake set his phone down and picked up the envelope, turning it over in his hands. "What's this, Pops?" "Official eviction notice." I said, my voice calm and even. "You have 60 days to find another place to live." The words dropped like stones into still water. Brooke grabbed her envelope and tore it open, her fingers shaking. Her eyes scanned the page, and I watched the color drain from her face. "Notice to vacate premises." She read aloud, her voice cracking. 60 days from date of service. Legal action may be taken." Jake shot to his feet, crumpling the envelope in his fist. "Are you out of your mind? This is our home." "This is my house," I said. "You haven't paid a single dollar in rent in 5 years. It's time to grow up." Jake stepped forward, his face flushing red, his jaw clenched. He moved into my personal space close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath, see the anger flashing in his eyes. His fists were clenched at his sides, knuckles white. "We're family. You can't just kick us out like we're strangers." I stood my ground, didn't move, didn't flinch. "I'm not kicking out family. I'm evicting tenants who have overstayed their welcome. This notice is completely legal, 60 days. Legal." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think hiding behind some piece of paper makes this okay?" "I think," I said quietly, "that you've had 5 years to figure your life out. That's more than enough time." Brooke lurched off the sofa and grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my sleeve. Tears started streaming down her face right on cue, just like I knew they would. The performance was almost impressive. "Dad, please. What are you doing? I'm your daughter. Your little girl. How can you do this to me?" I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back up at her face. For a moment, I almost felt something. Almost. But then I remembered the phone call, the laughter, the scheming, the casual way she'd talked about manipulating me like I was some kind of mark. I gently but firmly removed her hand from my arm. You stopped being my little girl when you started seeing me as nothing but a wallet. 60 days, Brooke. I suggest you both start packing. Jake moved even closer, his voice dropping to something low and dangerous. You do this, and everyone's going to know. Everyone, your friends, your business partners. Everyone in this valley is going to know what kind of father you really are. I turned and walked toward the hallway. Over my shoulder, I said one more time, this notice is completely legal. 60 days. I went into my office, closed the door behind me, and locked it. The click of the deadbolt echoed in the sudden quiet. Behind me, through the heavy oak door, I could hear the explosion I'd been expecting. Brooke's sobs, real ones now, not the fake tears she'd tried to sell me. Jake's voice rising, shouting something I couldn't quite make out. The crash of something being thrown. Furniture scraping across the hardwood floor. A picture frame hitting the wall. I sat down at my desk. Took a slow, steady breath. My hands were calm. Completely steady. After 2 weeks of chaos of discoveries that had turned my world upside down, I finally felt like I was doing something. Taking action. Fighting back. Through the door, Brooke's voice cut through the noise, sharper now, more controlled. She was on the phone. Olivia, she said, and I could hear the calculation beneath the distress. The old man just served us eviction papers. Yeah, 60 days. I don't know, he just walked in here like some kind of stranger and dropped them on the table. I don't care what you were doing, this is serious. Yes, I read it. It's legal. He went to a lawyer, tomorrow. Yeah, bring Kyle. We need to deal with this. All of us. I listened to every word, took note. They were coordinating, regrouping, planning their counterattack, just like they always did. I opened my laptop and pulled up my calendar. I clicked on today's date, day 17, and created a new event. I typed day 1 of 60 eviction notices served. Then I sat back in my chair and looked around my office. 40 years of my life were in this room. Awards on the walls, photos of the business in its early days, me standing in front of that first delivery truck, young and hopeful and stupid enough to think hard work was all it took. Photos of Anne at company picnics, smiling that smile that had made me fall in love with her 35 years ago. Photos of Olivia and Brooke as children, before they'd learned to see me as something to exploit. Through the window, I could see the valley. The last light was fading, the sun slipping below the western hills, casting everything in shades of gold and shadow. The vineyards stretched out in their perfect rows, disciplined and orderly, built by people who understood that good things take time, that you can't cheat the seasons. There was a knock on my office door. Hard, deliberate. 3 sharp raps. Jake's voice came through the wood, low and cold. This isn't over, old man. You hear me? This isn't over. You're going to regret this. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Threats don't require answers. They only require resolve. I sat there in the gathering darkness, listening to the muffled sounds of chaos beyond my door, and thought about the next 60 days. 2 months, 8 weeks. It sounded like a long time. But I'd survived 40 years building a business from scratch. I'd survived late nights and bad deals and economic crashes and competitors who'd tried to bury me. I'd survived losing Anne, the only person who'd ever really understood me. I could survive 60 days of psychological warfare from people who'd never worked for anything in their lives. They say the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Over the next week, I watched them cycle through all 5, sometimes hitting 3 before breakfast. Day 19. Saturday morning. Olivia and Kyle arrived unannounced, carrying a bottle of wine and that practiced smile Olivia used when she wanted something big. We sat in the living room, my living room, while they performed their opening act. "Dad, this house is so big for just one person," Olivia began, her voice honey smooth. "Have you thought about selling it? We could all benefit. You'd have less maintenance, more freedom, and we could help you find something perfect." Kyle leaned forward, playing the supportive son-in-law. "Think about it, Adam. We're family. We should help each other. The Napa real estate market is strong right now. You'd get top dollar." I set my coffee down, slowly meeting their eyes one by one. "Let me think about it." They left an hour later, confident they'd planted the seed. I watched their Mercedes disappear down the drive, then returned to my desk. 57 days left on the eviction notice. They were getting desperate. Day 20, Sunday. I walked into the kitchen at 6 in the morning to find my coffee maker shattered across the tile floor, glass everywhere, the machine's guts exposed, water pooling near the baseboards. Jake sat at the breakfast table, cereal bowl in front of him, acting surprised. "Oh, that Brooke dropped it this morning. Total accident, Pops. She feels terrible." I grabbed the broom without a word, swept the glass into the dustpan while he watched. When I dumped it in the trash, I turned to face him. 57 days. His jaw tightened. I walked out. Days 21 and 22. Brooke staged her masterpiece. I came downstairs Monday morning to find her sprawled on the living room sofa in a bathrobe, one hand pressed dramatically to her chest. "Dad, I can't get up. My heart is racing. The stress from the eviction." Jake hovered nearby, playing the concerned boyfriend. "Pops, you should call a doctor. This could be serious. The eviction notice, it's killing her." I paused at the bottom of the stairs, studied her performance, the heaving chest, the weak voice, the trembling hand. Oscar-worthy, really. "There's aspirin in the cabinet," I said, and kept walking. Tuesday brought more of the same. Brooke in the bathrobe, hand on chest, Jake suggesting specialists. I made my breakfast, read the paper, and left for the office without engaging. By Tuesday night, the symptoms had mysteriously vanished when she thought I wasn't watching. I saw her laughing on the phone, painting her nails, perfectly healthy. Day 23. Wednesday. The doorbell rang at 10 in the morning. I opened it to find Olivia standing beside a woman in her late 50s, professional clothes, carrying a leather portfolio and a clipboard. "Dad, this is Dr. Rachel Thornton," Olivia said, her voice dripping false concern. "We thought it might help to talk to someone. Your recent behavior, the eviction, the isolation, these could be signs of Mr. Hartwell." Dr. Thornton interrupted gently, her tone practiced and calm. "Your daughter is worried about you. Sometimes major life changes can affect our judgment. A simple conversation could—" "I don't consent to this conversation," I said, looking directly at Olivia. "Both of you, leave, now." For just a second, Olivia's mask slipped. The warmth drained from her eyes, replaced by something cold and calculating. Then she recovered, touching Dr. Thornton's arm. "Let's go. He's clearly not ready." They left. I locked the door behind them, returned to my office, and added the incident to my growing mental file. Attempt to declare me incompetent. Day 23. Failed. Day 24. Thursday. I came home from the distribution center around 4 in the afternoon, walked upstairs to my office, and stopped. The door was slightly ajar. I always closed it completely, a habit from 40 years of protecting business documents. Inside, everything looked normal at first glance. Then I noticed the trust papers on my desk had been moved, rotated 90 degrees, the top page no longer aligned with the stack beneath it. Someone had been in here, Someone had read the documents. Now they knew. The irrevocable trust. The 90% to charity. The 5% each to my daughters. They'd seen the numbers, the finality, the legal language that locked them out forever. I sat at my desk, a slow smile spreading across my face. Good. Let them panic. Day 25, Friday afternoon. A soft knock on my office door. Brooke stood there alone. No Jake holding a tissue, eyes red and swollen, real tears this time. Or maybe just better technique. Dad, can we talk? Just the two of us. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat posture defeated, shoulders hunched. I've been thinking, she began, voice trembling. You were right about Jake. He's not good for me. I see that now. I've made terrible mistakes. I'm begging you to forgive me. Give me one more chance. I can change, become the daughter you deserve. The performance was flawless. Trembling voice, leaning forward. Long pause for effect. I let the silence stretch, watching her maintain the act. Then I spoke, my voice calm and measured. If you truly recognized your mistakes, Brooke, you wouldn't come here demanding forgiveness like it's a transaction. You'd come without expecting anything in return. But you're asking me to change my mind about the house, about the money, about the trust. Her face transformed. The tears stopped. Her voice went flat and hard. Fine. You want to be alone? Then be alone. But don't expect us to care what happens to you. She slammed the door. Through the ceiling, I heard her stomping upstairs, telling Jake the plan had failed, her voice sharp with frustration. Day 25. Friday evening. I found an envelope on the kitchen counter, Jake's handwriting across the front. Business proposal. Inside 3 pages of laser-printed text, laid out his vision, a craft brewery investment requiring $30,000 up front. The terms, they'd stay in the house, pay $500 per month in rent, and repay me over 5 years. The final paragraph promised this would solve everything. They'd stay, I'd profit, the family would remain together. I read it twice, noting the math. $500 times 60 months equaled $30,000. 0 interest. 0 real return. A money laundering scheme dressed up as a business opportunity. I walked into the living room where they both sat, trying to look casual but radiating hope. Jake half stood as I approached. I handed the envelope back. No. One word. I returned to my office, closed the door, and listened to the explosion through the walls. Brooke's voice rising in anger, Jake's responding in frustration. Every manipulation attempt cataloged and filed away in my mind. They were so predictable. I sat at my desk, pulled out my calendar, and circled a date. Tomorrow. Family dinner. Tomorrow I would show them exactly how much I knew. Tomorrow the war would begin in earnest. If you're still following Douglas after the lies and failed schemes, type 10 below. You're ready for the climax. Heads up, this story includes fictionalized details for narrative impact. If this doesn't suit you, leave now. But tomorrow's family dinner, everything explodes. Your call. Day 26. Late afternoon. My phone rang while I stood on the back deck watching the vineyard workers finish the day's pruning. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. Dad, we're coming over for dinner tonight. Kyle and me, we need to talk as a family. Not a request, an announcement. I let the silence stretch for 3 seconds. What time? I asked. 6:30. We'll bring everything. You've been working so hard, Dad. Let us take care of you. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, then at the calendar on my desk. Day 26. Tonight. Let them come. 6:15. Olivia and Kyle arrived with canvas grocery bags, smiles plastered on their faces like masks. Organic chicken, fresh vegetables, a bottle of Napa Cabernet that cost more than their weekly grocery budget. "Tonight we cook," Olivia announced, sweeping into my kitchen like she owned it. "You work too hard, Dad. Relax." They took over my space with practiced efficiency. Kyle chopped vegetables at my cutting board. Olivia seasoned the chicken at my counter. They moved through my kitchen like they'd rehearsed it, which they probably had. This was theater. By 6:45, Brooke and Jake arrived. Brooke wore a cocktail dress and perfect makeup. No trace of the heart condition from earlier in the week. Jake had showered and shaved wearing khakis and a button-down shirt I'd never seen before. Another costume. The dining table looked magazine perfect. Olivia had set it with my good china, the set Anne and I received as a wedding gift 43 years ago, and fresh flowers in a crystal vase. A territorial display. This could be ours. We sat, passed dishes, made small talk. Kyle described his work in vague investment terms. Olivia mentioned house hunting. Brooke praised the chicken. Jake complimented the wine. Everyone performed their roles flawlessly. Then Olivia shifted. "Dad managing this house alone must be exhausting. So many rooms. The maintenance. The yard work." Her voice dripped concern. Kyle picked up his cue. "The real estate market is incredibly strong right now. Napa properties sell fast. You could get top dollar." Olivia reached over and touched a framed photo on the sideboard Anne and me at our 30th anniversary. Another possessive gesture. "We'd help you move, of course, and whatever money you make from the sale, it would be wonderful if you shared it with family. Help Brooke and Jake get started. Help Kyle and me buy a place. Everyone benefits." I set my fork down carefully. Looked at each face around my table in my house that I'd paid for with 40 years of work. "I'm not selling the house." Olivia's smile tightened. "Dad, no one's forcing you. We're just worried." "Thank you for your concern. I'm fine." I stood, walked to my office, and returned carrying the yellow folder, set it on the table with deliberate calm. Sat back down. "Before you leave, there's something you should see." I opened the folder, slid 8 printed photographs across the table, stills pulled from James's security footage. Olivia picked up the first one. Her face went white. Images she'd never seen. Kyle standing beside a red-haired woman, kissing her. Timestamp and location data displayed clearly across the bottom: July 12th, 4:47 p.m. Sullivan Catering Facility, Yountville, CA. 2 hours before your wedding ceremony, I said, my voice level. Security camera at the venue. The raw footage includes date-time GPS coordinates. Her name is Kristen Shaw. She's been working with Kyle for 4 years. Kyle started to protest. It's not what it looks like. I raised one hand. He stopped. I also overheard a phone conversation. I looked directly at Olivia. "Let me quote it for you. 2 more months, then I file for divorce. Half the gifts are mine under California law." Kyle agreed to a 60-40 split. "Those were your exact words, Olivia. You and Brooke. On speakerphone in my hallway." The silence was thick enough to drown in. Brooke's mouth hung open. Jake stared at his plate. Kyle's face had gone gray. Olivia sat frozen, the photograph still in her hand. I continued. "I've established an irrevocable trust. My house, my business, my savings, everything is now protected. After I'm gone, you'll each receive 5%. 5% of everything I've built. The remaining 90% goes to charities, veterans organizations, food banks, homeless shelters. The trust has been filed with the state. It's done. I stood, pushed my chair back with a decisive scrape against the hardwood. Brooke and Jake have 51 days left on their eviction notice. This conversation is over. I walked toward the hallway. Behind me, chaos erupted, Olivia's voice rising sharp and shrill, Kyle offering weak protests, Brooke crying, Jake cursing. I stepped into my office, closed the door, turned the lock. The shouting continued, muffled now. Footsteps pounded up the stairs, doors slammed, more shouting. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up my email. There it was. Sent this morning from Andrea Wells, my estate attorney. Subject line, Trust Filing Confirmation. All documents have been filed with the state of California. Irrevocable status confirmed. Your assets are fully protected. I read it twice, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. Outside my locked door, Olivia demanded I come out. Jake threatened to break the door down. Empty threats. They could rage all they wanted. The truth had been spoken. The trust was established. 51 days until the eviction became legally enforceable. But the war had already begun, and I had no intention of retreating. 51 days blurred together in a countdown of escalating desperation. Day 27. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. No greeting, no pretense of civility. This isn't over, Dad. Kyle and I will challenge that trust. We'll expose you as an incompetent father. You'll lose everything. I read it twice, deleted it without responding. She didn't know what I knew, that Kyle was a professional con artist, that she'd been played just like me, that the FBI might already be building a case file. She thought she had leverage. She had nothing. Days 28 through 45. Brooke tried everything, tearful voicemails, handwritten letters slipped under my office door. Late-night knocks, I didn't answer. Jake's approach was simpler, low-voiced threats muttered as I passed him in the hallway. Promises that I'd regret this and pay for what I'd done. I responded to all of it the same way. A number, just a number. 50 days. 40 days. 30 days. They started to understand I wasn't bluffing. Days 46 through 60. The house became a war zone of passive aggression, dishes left unwashed for days, music blasting at 2 a.m, garbage accidentally knocked over in the driveway. My mail opened and scattered across the kitchen counter. Every morning I cleaned up their mess, marked another day off the calendar, and went to work. Gregory called weekly to check in. How are you holding up, Adam? I'm fine. How's the paperwork? Ironclad. If they try to fight the eviction, we'll bury them in legal fees they can't afford. If they try to challenge the trust, same result. You've done everything by the book. Good. Days 61 through 76. The countdown accelerated. 20 days. 15 days. 10 days. 7 days. 2 days. Tomorrow. Each number landed like a hammer. Brooke stopped making eye contact. Jake stopped making threats. They started sleeping past noon, binge-watching TV until 3 a.m, ordering delivery every night. Living like the world was ending. In a way it was. Their world. The one where they lived rent-free in my house, bleeding me dry while plotting their next scheme. Not anymore. Day 77. The 60-day notice period expired. Brooke and Jake didn't leave. I hadn't expected them to. Day 78. Gregory and I drove to the Napa County Superior Court and filed an unlawful detainer lawsuit. The clerk stamped the papers, assigned a case number, and scheduled service. The legal machine began to turn. Day 83. The court served Brooke and Jake with a summons. They had 5 days to respond. They didn't. I watched the deadline pass in silence each day, another nail in the coffin of their delusions. Day 88. Gregory called with the news. The court granted a default judgment. They didn't file a response, didn't show up, didn't hire a lawyer. It's over. We'll get the writ of possession by end of week. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank you, Gregory. Day 90. The writ of possession arrived by courier, an official court order granting me the legal right to reclaim my property. I held it in my hands, reading the judge's signature at the bottom. 40 years of building a life. And it came down to this. A piece of paper that said my house was mine again. Day 95. A sheriff's deputy arrived at my door with the writ. I watched from my office window as he posted a final 5-day notice on the front door. Brooke opened the door, read the notice, and went pale. Jake emerged, ripped it down, crumpled it, threw it on the ground. The deputy calmly taped up another copy. "That's destruction of a legal notice," he said. "I'd advise against doing it again." He walked back to his vehicle and drove away. 5 days. That was all they had left. Day 100. Monday morning, 10 o'clock sharp. I pulled into my driveway under a clear blue sky, the summer heat already building. 30 seconds later, the sheriff's vehicle rolled up behind me, black and white, official imposing. Deputy Sheriff Kevin Rhodes stepped out, mid-40s, uniform, crisp face professional. Gregory's car pulled up right behind him. Perfect coordination. We met on the walkway. "Mr. Hartwell." Deputy Rhodes extended his hand. "Everything's in order. The writ of possession is active. Time to reclaim your property." Gregory handed the deputy a folder. Full case file. 60-day notice served on day 17. Unlawful detainer filed on day 78. Default judgment on day 88. 5-day notice posted on day 95. All legal. I looked at my house. Quiet. No movement visible through the windows. Deputy Rhodes nodded. "Let's proceed." The three of us walked to the front door, me, Deputy Rhodes, Gregory. Power in numbers. The deputy knocked. 3 solid raps, no hesitation. Silence inside. Then Jake's voice, muffled and tight. "Go away. You can't do this." Deputy Rhodes raised his voice, calm but authoritative. "This is Deputy Sheriff Kevin Rhodes with the Napa County Sheriff's Office. I'm here to enforce a court-ordered writ of possession. Open the door now, or I'll be forced to open it myself. Refusing to comply constitutes contempt of court. The choice is yours." A long pause. Whispered arguing inside. Footsteps approaching. The door cracked open. Brooke's face appeared, eyes red and swollen jaw set in defiance, trying to mask panic. Deputy Rhodes pushed the door wider, not rough but firm. "May I come in?" It wasn't really a question. We stepped inside. The chaos in the living room hit me immediately. Clothes scattered everywhere, empty pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, beer cans littering the side tables. Not a single packed box in sight. Nothing ready? Nothing prepared. They'd lived in denial right up until this final moment. Deputy Rhodes surveyed the chaos, clothes everywhere, pizza boxes, beer cans. Not a single packed box in sight. He turned to face the room, his expression neutral, but his voice firm. "You weren't planning to leave, were you?" Jake emerged from the bedroom hallway, unshaven stubble covering his jaw, eyes red from lack of sleep. He stepped into the living room, trying to look defiant, but only managing to look desperate. "This is insane. We have rights." Deputy Rhodes remained calm, professional. "You have no rights to this property. No lease, no rental agreement, no ownership. The court has ruled. This is the final day. We can't possibly pack everything in. You've had 83 days. Deputy Rhodes interrupted, his voice hardening. 60 days from the original notice on day 17. Another 23 days while the court processed the unlawful detainer. You didn't leave on day 77 when the notice expired. You didn't respond to the court summons. You didn't show up for the hearing. You ignored the 5-day notice posted on your door. 2 hours is more than generous. He checked his watch. It's 10:15 now. You have until 12:15. Personal items only, clothing, toiletries, personal effects. No furniture, no fixtures. The clock starts now. Brooke's voice came out high and panicked. 2 hours. 83 days became 2 hours because you didn't prepare. Time's wasting. The next 90 minutes were chaos. Brooke grabbed garbage bags from under the kitchen sink, no suitcases ready, no boxes packed, and started shoving clothes into them. Tears streamed down her face as she worked mascara, running hands, shaking. She moved from room to room like someone in a disaster movie, grabbing things randomly, stuffing them into bags without any organization. Jake threw items into a duffel bag with aggressive, jerky movements. Clothes, shoes, a laptop, a gaming console. He muttered under his breath, just loud enough for me to hear. After everything we did for him, let him live in this huge place alone like some kind of miser. Deputy Rhodes's voice cut through the room, sharp and authoritative. Sir, this is Mr. Hartwell's property. I suggest you focus on packing and keep your comments to yourself. Jake glared, but went silent. I stood near the front door, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. I didn't help. Didn't offer a single word. Brooke kept trying to catch my eye, looking up from her packing with that pleading expression I'd seen 1,000 times before. The same manipulation tactic, the same performance. I didn't respond. Didn't even acknowledge her. Gregory stood beside me with his phone out, documenting everything. Photos of the chaos, video of Jake's aggressive packing, notes on his tablet. Building a record in case they tried to claim we'd stolen their belongings or damaged their property. Protecting me like always. 11:30. Most of their things were crammed into bags and piled by the door. Garbage bags full of clothes. The duffel. A backpack. A few boxes they'd scrounged from the garage. Not much to show for 5 years of living here. Deputy Rhodes stepped forward. I need to see identification from both of you before you leave. Standard procedure. Brooke wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing mascara further, and pulled her wallet from her purse. She handed over her California driver's license without protest. Jake hesitated. Why do you need, sir, ID now? Jake reached for his wallet slowly, reluctantly, pulled out his license and handed it over, his jaw tight. Deputy Rhodes took both licenses and walked out to his vehicle. I watched through the window. He sat in the driver's seat, typing into the computer mounted on his dashboard, running their names through the system. His posture changed. Shoulders straightened. He looked at the screen for a long moment, then back toward the house. He got out of the vehicle and walked back toward us. His expression different now. More serious, more focused. Ms. Hartwell, you're clear. He handed Brooke her license back. Then he turned to Jake. Mr. Morrison, step over here, please. Jake's face went pale. What? Why? Deputy Rhodes rested his hand on his belt, a power stance deliberate and clear. Jake Morrison, you have an active warrant for your arrest. Unpaid court fines related to gambling debts. Failure to appear. Warrant issued by Clark County, Nevada 6 months ago. Jake's face drained of all color. I can explain. You're under arrest. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Brooke screamed. No, you can't, Jake. Deputy Rhodes moved with professional efficiency. No roughness, no drama, just practiced competence. He pulled Jake's arms behind his back and secured the handcuffs with 2 metallic clicks. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Jake twisted his head to look at me, his face contorted with rage. This is your fault, you did this. Deputy Rhodes tightened his grip. Sir, I'm asking you to be quiet. Now. A second officer, I hadn't even noticed him arrive, came forward to assist. Together, they guided Jake toward the sheriff's vehicle. Jake kept turning, trying to look back, shouting something I couldn't make out. They put him in the back seat. The door closed with a heavy thunk. Through the window, I could see Jake inside handcuffed face pressed against the glass, still yelling something. Brooke stood in the driveway, frozen, watching the vehicle with Jake inside. Her mouth hung open. Her hands trembled at her sides. Deputy Rhodes turned to her. Ma'am, you still have 40 minutes to finish packing. I suggest you use them. Brooke looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time in years, I saw something real in her eyes. Not manipulation, not performance, but genuine fear. She was alone now. Jake was gone. Not just evicted. Arrested, taken away in handcuffs. A forced separation. I hadn't planned, but didn't regret. She'd have to face whatever came next without him. Without Jake. Without me. Sink or swim on her own for the first time in 5 years. Jake was gone, handcuffed in the back of a sheriff's vehicle headed to county lockup. Brooke stood alone in the driveway, surrounded by garbage bags and a duffel looking small and broken. Deputy Rhodes's voice cut through her shock. Ma'am, you have 40 minutes. She snapped out of it, moved mechanically, dragging the bags toward her car. A beat-up Honda Civic, faded blue paint, chipped and rusting at the edges. A dent in the rear bumper from some long-ago accident. The kind of car someone drives when they're barely holding on. 12:10. 5 minutes until the deadline. Brooke shoved the last garbage bag into the trunk, her hands shaking. The trunk lid didn't want to close, too much crammed inside, so she slammed it twice, 3 times until it finally latched. She stood there for a moment, staring at the closed trunk, like she couldn't believe this was really happening. Then she turned to face me where I stood on the front porch. Her voice came out hoarse, broken. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Jake. The gambling. I couldn't stop. I need help. I know I need help. Tears streamed down her face, mascara leaving dark trails. Her whole body trembled. Real emotion, maybe for the first time in years. Or maybe just another performance. I honestly couldn't tell anymore. I kept my voice calm, measured. Then go get help, but not here, not now. She nodded, wiping her face with her sleeve. Then she hesitated, looking up at me with something that might have been hope. Can I call you someday? I considered my words carefully. Thought about Anne, thought about the 5 years of manipulation and lies. Thought about the daughter Brooke used to be before the gambling consumed her. Someday, maybe, when you're clean, when you've faced your debts, when you're no longer the person who spent 5 years using me. Her face crumpled. She nodded again, turned away, opened the car door and climbed inside. The engine turned over once, twice, coughing and sputtering. For a moment I thought it wouldn't start, that she'd be stranded here, forced to ask me for help one more time. Then it caught. The engine rattled to life, loud and uneven black smoke puffing from the exhaust. She put the car in gear and pulled out of the driveway slowly, carefully, like she was afraid the whole thing would fall apart if she went too fast. At the curve in the driveway, her brake lights flared red for a moment. One last hesitation, maybe. One last look back at the house she'd called home for 5 years. Then she accelerated and disappeared behind the line of oak trees that bordered the property. I stood there watching until I couldn't see her car anymore, until even the sound of that struggling engine faded into silence. Deputy Rhodes walked over, his expression neutral but not unkind. "They're officially gone, Mr. Hartwell. If either one tries to return without your permission, that's criminal trespass. Call us immediately." "Understood." "Understood. Thank you, Deputy." He nodded, headed back to his vehicle. Gregory came over and squeezed my shoulder once briefly. "You did good, Adam. You did what you had to do." "Thanks, Gregory." They drove away, first the sheriff's vehicle, then Gregory's sedan, their engines fading into the distance, leaving me alone in the driveway under the midday sun. I turned and faced my house. My house, not theirs. Mine. I walked inside. The silence hit me first. No music blasting, no TV at full volume, no Jake shouting into his phone about imaginary business deals, no Brooke clicking away at online poker sites. Just silence. Deep, heavy, wonderful silence. I moved through the rooms, slowly taking inventory. The living room empty now. The leather recliner where Jake used to sprawl remote in hand, acting like he owned the place. The sofa where Brooke curled up with her laptop, draining what little money she had left into digital card games. All of it mine again. The kitchen dishes still in the sink from this morning, but those were my dishes. My sink. My kitchen. I could clean it when I wanted. Or not. My choice. Upstairs to the guest apartment, they'd claimed as their own. Empty beer cans still scattered on the nightstand. Clothes they hadn't bothered to pack, littering the floor. I'd deal with it tomorrow. Today, I just needed to see it, to confirm it was really empty, really mine again. I walked back downstairs, stood in the living room, and looked out through the windows. The afternoon sun was starting its descent, casting golden light across the vineyard that stretched out behind the house. The rows of grapevines ran straight and orderly the way things should be, the way I'd built my life to be before it all fell apart. My phone rang. I pulled it from my pocket. Olivia's name on the screen. I stared at it. Let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. 4. Then it went to voicemail. 10 seconds later, a notification appeared. I deleted it without listening. Whatever she wanted, money, explanations, more manipulation, I didn't care. Not today. Maybe not ever. The house was mine. The trust was protected. Brooke and Jake were gone. Tomorrow, I'd deal with Olivia and Kyle. Tomorrow, I'd watch their world collapse when they discovered the truth about each other. Tomorrow, the real reckoning would begin. But tonight I was going to sit on my back deck with a glass of wine from my own vineyard and watch the sun set over my valley. For the first time in 5 years, I was alone in my house. For the first time in 5 years, I was free. Olivia called 14 times over 3 days. I didn't answer any of them. Day 101. The first voicemail came through angry and sharp. I listened to it later sitting at my desk, with a glass of scotch, just to hear how she'd frame it. "I hope you're happy, Dad. You destroyed this family. Kicked Brooke out. Turned Kyle against me. You're going to regret this." I deleted it. Thought to myself, she still doesn't know. Day 103. Gregory called while I was reviewing distribution contracts at the office. "Adam, I reached out to Olivia's divorce attorney. Told him there's something she needs to know about Kyle Brennan. FBI investigation, interstate fraud, multiple victims, The information will reach her within 24 hours. And then, I asked. Then she has a choice. Cooperate or go down with him. I set my pen down, stared out the window at the warehouse floor below. You think she'll cooperate? I think she's smart enough to know when she's been played. We'll find out. Day 104. Olivia got the call from her divorce lawyer. I heard about this later, pieced together from what she told me. She'd been at the rental apartment, a studio in Yountville, all she could afford, after moving out of the house Kyle had been using when her phone rang. Her lawyer's voice came through careful and measured. Olivia, we need to talk about Kyle. There's a federal investigation. She pulled up her laptop, started searching. Court records, news articles, police reports, an interview with a victim's daughter in Oregon. He seemed perfect. Then he destroyed my mother financially. A police report from Colorado. Robert Harrison, hardware store owner, nearly lost his business. An obituary from Nevada. Frank Morrison passed away 3 months after the fraud. Heart attack, the official cause. Broken heart, everyone knew. The pattern emerged before her eyes like a connect-the-dots drawing she'd been blind to. 3 families, 3 weddings, 3 cons, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, and now California. She sat alone in her studio apartment, 10 by 12 feet Murphy bed folded against the wall, kitchenette the size of a closet, and the pieces clicked into place. The expensive wedding? $105,000. Dad paid. Kyle collected the gifts. The joint checking account. Kyle's idea, not hers. Opened 2 months before the wedding. The rushed timeline. 6 months from first date to wedding day. Kyle pushing, always pushing, to move faster. Oh my God, she whispered to the empty room. I'm victim number 4. She'd thought she was the con artist. Thought she was using Kyle to get to Dad's money. Thought she was in control. But Kyle had been using her. Using her to target Dad. The house. The business. $14 million. She hadn't been running the scam. She'd been the bait. Day 105 morning. My phone rang. Olivia again. I almost sent it to voicemail. Then I saw the time, 6:30 in the morning. She never called this early. I answered. Her voice came through broken raw. Dad, I need to talk to you. Please, I know you hate me, but I just found out about Kyle. Can I come over? I hesitated. Thought about hanging up. Thought about the voicemail from 4 days ago, full of anger and blame. You have 30 minutes, I said. Day 105 afternoon. She arrived at 2 in the afternoon. I watched through the window as she pulled up in the Mercedes, still had that at least, and climbed out. The first thing I noticed was how different she looked. No designer clothes, no carefully styled hair, no makeup. Just jeans and a plain t-shirt, both wrinkled like she'd slept in them. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked human, vulnerable, young, like the daughter I'd had before greed consumed her. I opened the door before she knocked. She stood on the porch, hands shoved in her pockets, unable to meet my eyes. Come in, I said. We sat in the living room, her on the sofa, me in the armchair by the window. The same room where we'd had the dinner confrontation. The same room where I'd shown her the photos of Kyle and Kristen. Different now. Quieter. Just the 2 of us. She started crying immediately. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was greedy and stupid and awful. I planned to con you through the wedding. I thought Kyle was my partner, that I was in control. I waited. Said nothing. Her hands shook as she continued. But he conned me. I looked at the records. Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, 3 families before us. He's done this before. And Kristen, the woman in the photos, she's his real partner. They targeted you through me. The wedding, the gifts, everything. I thought it was my scam. But it was his. I was just the tool he used to get to you. To your house. Your business. I leaned forward slightly. Why are you telling me this now? She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Because I was wrong. Because you're my father, and I almost helped a criminal rob you. Because I want to do something right. I have evidence. Text messages from Kyle about Phase 3. Emails to Kristen about his plans. Recordings of our fights that I didn't understand then, but make sense now. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands. I want to help catch him. No conditions. I don't want your money. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just want to stop him from doing this to someone else. I studied my daughter. Broken. Weak. Sincere. For the first time in years, maybe the first time ever, she was being completely honest. She scrolled through her phone, then looked up at me. I have text messages about Phase 3, emails he sent to Kristen, recordings of arguments where he talked about the timeline, the targets, the exit strategy. I didn't understand what it all meant back then. But now, I leaned forward in my chair. Show me. 3 days after Olivia's confession, on the morning of day 108, we drove in silence to Gregory's office in downtown Napa. She gripped a yellow binder filled with screenshots and bank statements. Gregory had called 2 nights earlier. The FBI has a file on Kyle. Your daughter's cooperation will determine whether she's a witness or a co-conspirator. The conference room. A woman in her early 40s stood by the window, charcoal blazer, FBI badge, Special Agent Sarah Martinez, Economic Crimes Unit. Gregory gestured for us to sit. Agent Martinez has been investigating Kyle Brennan and Kristen Hale for 8 months. Olivia's evidence connects several interstate fraud cases. Agent Martinez set a digital recorder on the table. Red light blinking. Ms. Brennan, you're here voluntarily. Yes. Show me what you brought. Evidence presentation. Olivia opened the binder. First page. A screenshot dated July 29th, 2 weeks after the wedding. Kyle Phase 3 is asset transfer. Once the old man updates the trust or sells property, we pivot. Timing is critical. Stay close. Keep him isolated from legal advice. Agent Martinez leaned forward. You have the original metadata? Yes. Everything's backed up with timestamps. Olivia turned to the next page. This email was sent from Kyle's account to Kristen72649 at proton.me. The Bureau confirmed it's Kristen Hale. Subject target update date August 14th, Phase 1 complete wedding gifts. Netted $47,000. Phase 2 in progress. Joint account established. Target value estimated $14 million, primary residence Napa. $4 million appraisal investment accounts, life insurance. Phase 3, timeline 90 to 120 days. Once trust is amended or property liquidates, we execute transfer and exit. Backup plan legal pressure via daughters. $14 million. Kyle had reduced my entire life to a line item. Next, Olivia played an audio file. Kyle's voice calm. Brooke's the weak link. Offer her 50 grand and she'll push the old man to sell. Olivia's positioned as the responsible daughter. When Brooke melts down, Olivia steps in. Classic good cop, bad cop. I looked away. "One more thing," Olivia said. She slid a bank statement across the table. Joint account Kyle and I opened. 3 weeks ago, he transferred $8,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. When I confronted him, he said it was a business investment. The next day, he deleted the record, but I'd printed a copy. Agent Martinez scanned the highlighted line. This matches transfers from 2 prior victims in Colorado and Oregon. Same bank, same routing. She looked at Olivia. "Were you aware of Kyle's activities before the wedding?" "No." Olivia's voice cracked. "I thought he was helping me reconnect with my father. I was angry after my mother's death. The wedding gift idea was Kyle's, but I went along because I wanted my father to see how serious we were. I didn't know he was planning to rob him." Gregory cleared his throat. "Agent Martinez, my client will testify and surrender her devices for forensic analysis." Agent Martinez nodded. "I'll pass that to the U.S. Attorney. For now, Ms. Brennan, do not contact Kyle or Kristen. If they contact you, notify me immediately." Trust Fund Confirmation Agent Martinez turned to me. "Mr. Hartwell, Gregory mentioned you established an irrevocable trust. Confirm the details. 90% of my estate goes to charitable organizations, addiction recovery, and veteran services. 5% to each daughter. Filed with the court on day 26 before the 60-day eviction notice expired. Kyle and Kristen have no legal claim." Gregory added, "The trust documents are recorded with Napa County. Even if Kyle had succeeded, the trust is irrevocable. No one can amend it without court proof of incapacity or fraud. Neither exists." Agent Martinez made a note. "Good." Day 113. The arrest. 5 days later, my phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. Gregory's voice, "Turn on the news." I grabbed the remote. The local NBC affiliate showed FBI agents and sheriff's deputies outside a downtown Napa apartment complex. Yellow tape. A reporter narrated, "FBI agents executed a warrant this morning arresting Kyle Brennan, 42, and Kristen Hale, 38, on charges including wire fraud, conspiracy, and interstate financial crimes." The camera showed agents carrying boxes, computers, files, a safe. Then Kyle in handcuffs, head down. Kristen followed, pale and defiant. They're in federal custody," Gregory said. "Bail hearing Monday, but with the flight risk and offshore accounts, I doubt they'll be released." I hung up and walked back outside. The fog was lifting. Somewhere in a federal cell, Kyle was realizing Phase 3 would never happen. Olivia was in a rented studio in Sonoma. Brooke somewhere. I hadn't heard from her since she drove away. And I was here. Alone in the house Anne and I had built. Justice wasn't always satisfying, but it was something. And for now, that was enough. A day 115. The news breaks. I was on the deck with my morning coffee when my phone buzzed. Paul Whitmore's name lit up the screen. "Adam, have you seen the news yet?" "No. What news?" "Check the Napa Valley Register. You're in it." I opened the browser on my phone and found the local news site. The headline sat at the top of the homepage in bold letters, "Local wedding scam, part of multi-state fraud ring, food distribution, executive narrowly escapes financial ruin." I skimmed the first paragraph. Adam Hartwell, owner of a successful regional food distribution company, was targeted in an elaborate fraud scheme orchestrated by Kyle Brennan, 42, and his accomplice, Kristen Hale, 38. The couple, arrested by the FBI earlier this week, allegedly defrauded multiple victims across Colorado, Oregon, and California using romance scams, fake business proposals, and manipulated family relationships. Shaw, whose late wife Anne passed away 8 years ago, became a target after Brennan married Shaw's eldest daughter in a lavish Napa Valley ceremony last summer. The article didn't name Olivia directly journalistic ethics, I supposed. But this was a small community. Everyone would know. Everyone would connect the dots. I set the phone down and stared out at the vineyard. The grapes were budding. Spring always came, no matter what. Social fallout. Olivia found out about the article an hour later when a former coworker texted her a screenshot with the caption, "OMG, is this your dad?" She didn't respond. She put on sunglasses, grabbed her wallet, and drove to the grocery store in Sonoma. She needed milk bread, something to do with her hands. In the produce aisle, she saw Rachel Donnelly, a friend from her old book club. Rachel made eye contact for half a second, then turned and walked quickly toward the dairy section without a word. At the checkout line, the cashier, someone Olivia had chatted with a dozen times before, avoided her gaze, entirely scanning items in silence. When Olivia got back to her car, she sat in the driver's seat and cried. Later that afternoon, her phone rang. Her boss at the marketing firm where she'd worked for 3 years. "Olivia, hi. Listen, we've been talking, and we think it might be best if you took some paid leave for a while. Just until this situation settles down. We're getting questions from clients. It's creating a distraction." "I understand," Olivia said quietly. "It's not personal. It's just, I understand." She hung up. The next call came 2 hours later. A woman named Margaret Chevalier, who ran a small wine tasting event Olivia had registered for weeks ago. "Olivia, I'm so sorry to do this, but given everything that's happening right now, I think it might be best if you skipped this Saturday's event. With all the publicity, it might be uncomfortable for everyone." Olivia didn't argue. She simply said, "Okay," and deleted the calendar reminder. That evening, as she walked down the hallway of her apartment building, 2 neighbors were chatting near the mailboxes. They stopped mid-sentence when they saw her. One of them gave a tight-lipped smile. The other looked away. When Olivia reached her door, she heard one of them whisper something followed by a stifled laugh. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and leaned against it. Her phone was still in her hand. She opened her messages and typed, "Dad, I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know I deserve this. All of it. The stares, the whispers, the people turning away. I deserve every bit of it. But it hurts more than I thought it would." She stared at the message for a long time. Then she deleted it without sending. Day 116. Legal consequences. The next morning, Olivia sat across from her divorce attorney, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s named Linda Tran. Linda slid a folder across the desk. "I've reviewed the situation. Here's where we stand." Olivia opened the folder. Bank statements, court filings, a timeline. "The joint account you and Kyle opened has been frozen pending the federal investigation. The $76,000 in wedding gifts is now subject to legal dispute. The U.S. Attorney's Office is arguing that those funds should be returned to prior victims in Colorado and Oregon as restitution." Olivia felt her chest tighten. "But those gifts were given to us. Legally." "Legally, yes. But the FBI is treating the wedding itself as part of the broader fraud scheme. They're arguing that the gifts were obtained under false pretenses, that Kyle orchestrated the wedding specifically to collect money. If the court agrees, those funds could be seized." "What does that mean for me?" Linda leaned back in her chair. "It means that even if the court rules that you're entitled to your portion of the gifts, your legal fees will eat up most of it. You've already paid $8,000 in retainer and consultation fees. By the time this is over, you'll likely owe more than you'd recover." Olivia stared at the papers in front of her. The numbers blurred. "So the scam that was supposed to net me $45,000 is going to cost me money instead." Linda's expression didn't change. "Yes, that's the irony of fraud cases. The guilty party rarely comes out ahead. Olivia drove back to her studio apartment in silence. She parked in the narrow alley behind the building, climbed the stairs, and unlocked the door. The apartment was small, barely 400 square feet. A Murphy bed, a kitchenette, a single window overlooking a parking lot. It was all she could afford now. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened her laptop. Her savings account showed a balance of $2,300. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Her therapist's bill was overdue, and the legal fees were just beginning. Evening. The letter. That night, Olivia pulled out a notebook and a pen. She sat at the tiny kitchen counter and began to write by hand. The first draft was messy, full of crossed-out lines, false starts, apologies, that didn't sound sincere even to her own ears. She threw it away and started again. The second draft was better. 3 pages. Careful, measured words. Dad, I know I don't have the right to ask for anything from you. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not even a response. But I need you to know what happened. Not as an excuse, but as the truth. I was greedy. I was angry. I was foolish. When Mom died, I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. Kyle saw that anger and used it. He told me what I wanted to hear, that you were controlling, that you didn't respect my choices, that I deserved more than you were offering. The wedding gift idea was his, but I went along with it because I wanted to prove something to you. I wanted you to see that I was serious, that Kyle and I were building a real life together. I didn't know he was planning to rob you. When I found out about Kristen, about the other victims, about Phase 3, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Everything I thought I knew about him, about us, was a lie. I've cooperated with the FBI. I've turned over every message, every email, every piece of evidence I had. I'm testifying when the case goes to trial. Right now, I'm working at a coffee shop for minimum wage. I live in a studio apartment in a cheap part of town. I see a therapist every week. I'm paying off legal fees. I'm trying to figure out how to be a person I'm not ashamed of. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything anymore. I just need you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. Someone who might one day deserve to be your daughter again. I'm sorry. Olivia, she read it over 3 times. Then she folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and addressed it to my house. But she didn't stamp it. She didn't walk to the mailbox. She just sat there holding the sealed envelope in both hands, staring at my address written on the front. Would I even read it? Or would I throw it away unopened? She set the envelope on the kitchen counter. Tomorrow, maybe. Or never. The shame of facing me again, even through a letter, felt heavier than any legal consequence she'd face in court. Day 123. Week 7. An envelope from Gregory's office arrived, thick and official. I opened it on the deck. Dear Mr. Hartwell, all trust documents finalized and filed with California. Irrevocable status fully confirmed. Your assets are completely protected. Andrea Wells, estate specialist. I read it twice, filed it in my desk. My shoulders dropped. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying. Day 125. Reconnecting. I drove to James's catering facility with a 2015 Cabernet from a local vineyard. He was prepping in the kitchen, looked up surprised. Adam didn't expect you. I handed him the wine. Wanted to say thank you for telling me the truth when no one else would. James wiped his hands. That's what friends do. We sat in his office. How are you really? Better. House is mine. Assets protected. Brooke and Jake gone. Olivia's complicated. But I'm okay. I was worried after the arrests, saw it on the news. You did the right thing. That footage saved me. When I left, James called. Adam, there's someone I want you to meet. Chef friend, recently widowed your age. Just coffee sometime. I was surprised, but didn't object. Coffee sounds good. Day 127. Paul's visit. Paul Whitmore showed up unannounced. I figured you could use company that doesn't want anything. We had dinner pasta salad. Paul shook his head. That $18,000 check I gave Kyle. I'm sorry it ended up part of the scam. Not your fault. You were generous. They were criminals. As he left. You did the right thing, Adam. Protecting yourself took real courage. Day 131. Messages from the past morning. A text from an unknown number. Dad, it's Brooke. I'm in rehab in Sacramento. Jake's arrest woke me up. Today is day 28 sober. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know I'm trying. B. I read it several times. Didn't reply, wasn't ready. But didn't block it either. Saved as Brooke, rehab. Thought 28 days. She needs 365. Then maybe we'll talk. Afternoon, Olivia's envelope arrived. I held it for a minute before opening. 3 pages, her handwriting. Details of her life now: coffee shop, job, studio, apartment, weekly therapy, legal fees. Final line. Trying to become someone who might one day deserve to be your daughter again. I'm sorry. Olivia. I folded it carefully, placed it in my desk drawer. Didn't throw it away, didn't reply, but didn't destroy it. The door wasn't open, but not bolted shut anymore. Day 135. New routines. Wednesday, first guitar lesson. Small practice room downtown, instructor patient. Fingers clumsy on strings, frustrating but focusing. Practice 20 minutes daily, he said. I committed. Friday, first volunteer shift at Napa Valley Senior Center. Helped elderly with financial planning estate questions. An 80-something woman. My son keeps asking for money. I don't know how to say no. I leaned forward. Let me tell you about boundaries and trusts. Found unexpected purpose helping others avoid my mistakes. The director, you have a gift. Could you come weekly? I'd be happy to. Day 143, coffee in Yountville. I met Helen at the cafe. James mentioned his chef friend. Outdoor seating, autumn air, leaves turning. Helen, 63, former San Francisco chef, widowed 2 years, warm smile, working hands. Awkward at first, then conversation flowed. We talked about loss, both widowed Anne, 8 years, her husband too, food industry stories. Laughter about kitchen disasters, supplier mix-ups. No pressure, just easy companionship. This was nice, Helen said. Would you want to do this again? I realized I did. Yes, I would. Driving home, I felt lighter. Not ready for a relationship, but open to friendship possibility. Thought of Anne. She'd want me to move forward, not stand frozen in grief. Day 153, final dawn. I stood on my balcony at 6 a.m., coffee warm in my hand, watching the sun climb over Napa Valley. New routines established: guitar Wednesdays, volunteering Fridays, coffee with Helen Saturdays, second date planned. Phone silent. No messages from Brooke respecting my space. No calls from Olivia respecting boundaries. Calendar marked Kyle and Kristen's preliminary hearing next month. Olivia would testify. Trust documents in the office, everything protected. House around me, quiet, clean mine. Vineyard below harvest, beginning workers in rows, cycle of renewal. I thought about the past. Anne gone 8 years. 5 years letting Brooke and Jake exploit me. $105,000 for a fraudulent wedding. But James told the truth. Gregory protected me. Paul stood by me. Real friends didn't demand. Real family respected boundaries. I was 68. However many years remained, they were mine to choose. I thought about the next chapter. Guitar Wednesdays helping me learn something new. Volunteer Fridays helping others set boundaries. Coffee with Helen Saturdays, maybe more, maybe just friendship. Business decisions made for myself, not guilt. If Brooke stayed sober for years, proved genuine recovery, maybe someday there'd be room for conversation. If Olivia continued helping prosecute Kyle faced consequences with grace, worked to become better, maybe someday the door would open. But not today. Today was mine. I stepped to the railing and looked out over my valley. The house behind me, paid off decades ago, now legally protected. The business I'd built, secured for the legacy I chose. The relationships I'd salvaged, genuine and true. The life ahead, unwritten and full of quiet possibilities. Justice wasn't revenge, I'd learned. It was protection. It was boundaries. It was saying no when no was the only right answer. It was choosing yourself when everyone else chose to use you. I had saved myself, and that was worth everything. The sun climbed higher, gilding the vineyard gold. I smiled, not brilliant, just small, honest, and mine. Alone, yes, but finally, truly, beautifully free. Looking back, I realize this is one of those grandpa stories people warn you about, the kind where love gets mistaken for weakness and generosity becomes a license to steal. I spent 5 years believing that family meant tolerating abuse. I was wrong. If you're reading this and see yourself in my shoes, please don't be like me. Don't wait 5 years to set boundaries. Don't confuse obligation with love. Don't let guilt paralyze you into funding someone else's destruction. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's crime because it wears the mask of loyalty while robbing you blind. Here's what I learned. Saying no isn't cruelty, it's survival. Protecting your assets isn't greed, it's responsibility. Walking away from people who use you isn't abandonment, it's self-respect. Family betrayal doesn't have to define your legacy. You can choose differently. These grandpa stories aren't just cautionary tales, they're roadmaps. If an old man in Napa Valley can reclaim his life at 68, you can too. Set the boundaries now. Protect what you've built. Choose people who choose you back. And here's something I believe deeply: God doesn't call us to be doormats. He calls us to be wise stewards. Sometimes love means protecting yourself from those who would destroy you. That's not selfishness, that's grace. I'm grateful you walked this journey with me. These grandpa stories exist, so you don't have to repeat our mistakes. So what would you do if you faced family betrayal like Adam did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters to me. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing so you don't miss what comes next. One gentle note. While this narrative draws from real-life dynamics and social themes, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling impact. If this content doesn't align with your preferences, feel free to explore other videos that suit you better. Alone, yes. But finally, truly, beautifully free.